Welcome to the special edition of Second City Sports on the Wednesday, July the 5th. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow me at Lakina McGee on the Twitter and at Lakina McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. And also, too, you can catch up on the other live shows we have airing throughout the week. So you happen to miss them, you can go back and watch them and listen to them at your own leisure. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app today. Speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, please find us on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, please find Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And also subscribe to our podcast. We're at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media PODCASTS. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And speaking of War Media, please give us a follow at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, that's at War Media, WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza, we call it Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always hit us up in the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But decide to troll and or do something stupid or pop anything in object form called fireworks. I'm giving you fools a fair warning, and Lakina, I'm giving you permission to give them the Beerland Beer Boot.
Bye-bye.
But before we begin, we must remind you that you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago, now available on Roku TV. That's right, so celebrate the squad and give them the program. Sports Zone Chicago is available now on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that Sports World and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku TV, but you have some handheld devices, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your personal PC, your Chromebook like I'm using right now, just go to that Google Play Store and download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate the squad and give it the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
All right. I hope you guys had a great 4th of July holiday weekend. If you're back at work, listen to us, that's fine. If you're with us, if you got the whole week off, you're listening to us for the first time, welcome. Don't be strangers. We got a lot to do here on Second City Sports. We're going to have our buddy Eugene McIntosh from the Bigs Talk Baseball with us, of course, as we got 4 All-Stars coming from Chicago and our respective teams. Also, too, we got teams going into, well, who knows where they're going in different directions. Also, we'll talk about the NASCAR race that happened over the weekend right there in the city center, right there in downtown. But we're going to start talk about some NBA free agency with the Bulls. Now the Bulls, picked up a couple of widely veterans. They got Torrey Craig, who played for the Suns. And also too, you got Javon Carter, who's actually is a Proviso East kid who's from Maywood. Mm-hmm. He actually does have a hoops camp here that he does for the last couple of summers. Not big, flashy names, but you got a couple of veteran guys that can shoot the threes. Both of them, have been around for a bit. So you got a little, got guys who are still, young enough to kind of, get it going there, get that 3-point shooting that the Bulls desperately need. And also they brought Coby White back. So, what do you think about that news, Sid? Because I think, look, again, these are not flashy moves, but this is sort of like what we expected from AK and Eversley. And you got a nice little showing here. So what do you think? What you think?
Well, this is what happens when you're stuck in mediocrity, or as we call it in the sports industry, NBA hell. As we said before, the weeks leading up to this, Lakina, we said this last year as well. The Bulls got to work with what they have limited because they're up against the salary cap. As you mentioned, these are not flashy moves, but these were necessary moves. I think the Torrey Craig move will work out a little bit better than Javon Carter. Here's why. Torrey Craig is a versatile player. He can play a little bit of defense. Yes, he can shoot the ball, but he's a little bit more versatile than Javon Carter. Now, Javon Carter filled out a role that was needed for the Milwaukee Bucks team last year, shooting the 3-point range. Can he do that for the Bulls? I think he can, but what else can he do besides shoot? And I know we've been banging on the door about the Bulls getting shooters for the last couple of off seasons. Yes, the Bulls finally got that, but I want Javon Carter to do something else, and I don't know if we're going to get that for him. But if he can shoot the ball, especially from 3-point range with the consistency, of course, the move would be worth it. But this is what happens when you're up against the salary cap and you want to make other moves, but since your funds are limited, this is what you have to do. I think you can give a Bulls a C plus, maybe B minus if that's a stretch. If you're grading on those moves, but as we said before, they're not going to get any big time free agents because they're up against the salary cap. If they're going to make any moves to get a really impact player, they have to do it via trade.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, I think Carter's one of those guys that if you shoot the three, his defense is a little bit questionable, but at least you got a shooter. Same thing with Torrey Craig. I mean, he does play a little bit of defense. You saw that a couple of times in the playoffs with the Suns. And I think, look, could be kind of like one of those days where they fill a little bit of that gap. Now, Lonzo Ball, they filed the I guess you could say that maybe it's a disability grievance or something like that to kind of get that $10.5 million off the books. So it would count against the cap. So, I don't know if they'll be able to make that trade, or maybe if a team is desperate enough to probably get rid of that money and that salary, but maybe they can probably do something there. But as far as trades go, look, I've said this multiple times. I mean, you're not gonna be able to trade Zach because that contract, no one's gonna take that. Same thing with look. I know DeRozan probably has like the best contract for people to show, but at the same time, though, he's your best player. You're going to trade your best player for something you're not going to get for equal or less of value. You're not going to, that's not going to happen either. So, look, who knows if AK nervously got, the other thing up their sleeve. I mean, I know they got Vooch back at a discount. They got Coby White back. I think it was like, $30 million for 3 years, or I think maybe $40 million. I think a lot of it might have been, there was a lot of incentives in that deal. So it actually ended up working books wise for them. Well, the CBA is a little bit weird, the new CBA. So it's a little bit funky how that works. But I mean, it is what it is with the Bulls. I mean, look, I'm not going to think that they're going to make any like big moves. I don't think they may try to get somebody else. We'll talk about some of the names that are still out there, but it's going to be one of those things where you're kind of like, okay, what are their, look, I mean, that Eastern Conference, okay, after Philadelphia, after Miami, we'll get to Miami and then we'll see what happens with them in a second. But it's just like if you're the Bulls, you kind of figure, okay, let's see if we can kind of at least try to kind of make it so we can stay afloat. Because no, Bulls fans are not going to want a total tear down. They're not going to do it. You can say that you guys can say that you are, but you're not. I've been saying it for like the last 3 months. It's not going to happen. So it is what it is with the Bulls, and we'll see. I mean, look, I think AK may have another move up his sleeve, but we'll see.
Yeah, if he does, he has to be via trade. And who's going to be the odd man out? Will it be Zach LaVine? It's going to be tough, like you mentioned, because of that contract that he signed around this time last summer. DeMar DeRozan will be the easiest candidate because he has the 1 year left on his contract. But could it be Coby White? I doubt it, since you re-signed him, even though he was a restricted free agent. I don't think it's going to be Vucevic because you just re-signed him. So, and I'm sure they made some promises to him as far as him being more involved in the office for next year. So I cannot see them saying all that to him just to get to sign and then trade him right before the season starts. I don't see that happening. So I think the next move the Bulls are going to make will be via trade. But like you said, it's really going to be tough. I think in the perfect world, they want to try to get rid of that contract for Zach LaVine. That means they're going to have to admit to themselves that they made a mistake signing him to that $215 million deal. But realistically, I think DeRozan will probably be the one next. Selfishly, as a Bulls fan, I don't want to get rid of him, but I think you would get better value for Zach, but I think you get most reasonable value for DeMar because of his contract situation.
But you're not going to get equal value, though. I mean, who's out there that you're going to get that? You're not going to get Dame. We'll get to him in a second, but you're not going to get Dame, a Dame and a DeRozan straight up. That's not going to happen. So I don't think.
No.
Where are you going to put? Where are you going to trade DeRozan at? You mean, are you going to trade for Julius Randle? No. For the Knicks, yeah, they got a lot of stuff there, but you're not going to do that. I mean, there's really nowhere else for this team to go. I mean, it's sort of one of those things where I think you want to try to see if you can trade DeRozan, but I just don't think it's happening.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. And like you said, Zach LaVine is going to be tough to trade because of the money that he makes. But Are you truly going to give good fair value for him? I don't think so either. You mentioned with the Knicks, and I forgot the other team that has these draft picks. Will they even offer half that up to the of that offer to the Chicago Bulls right now? I don't think so.
Yeah, I know there's been some various rumors about it, but I just don't think. I just like I said, I don't see it happening. You know, the
Mm-hmm.
value. I know. Look, I know AK Nevers are going to want to give equal value for DeRozan if they do try to trade him. I don't see. I think this is going to be like they may make another minor move, but I think this team's going to stand pat as they are. Like I know, like again, Bulls fans don't like it, but look, this is sort of one of those things where there's, of course, this kind of situation you're in when you're in the, like up against a cap and you're not. You got an owner that's not willing to spend, so it is what it is.
Yeah, you listen. You are listening to a special edition of Second City Sports, the Wednesday edition, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in living color. Sid McKinney here with you. As we wrap up this first segment, let's get to Damian Lillard, or as the kids call him, Dame Dollar, Dame Time. Of course, he put out the trade request around this. The news came out over the weekend, looking over this long extended holiday weekend. Of course, he's still a member of the Portland Trail Blazers. And there's a report out there. There's amongst 5 teams that are interested in Mr. Lillard's services. And one of them is the Miami Heat. Lakina, according to reports, Damian Lillard wants to go to Miami and Miami only. I think I was one of the first people to say that if Dame will be traded to Miami, I think this will work because you have him, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo. This definitely takes pressure off of Bam Adebayo as far as offensively is concerned, and you could definitely be in amongst the top teams in the East again and be a real threat to get back to the NBA Finals. The question is, who can Pat Riley in that front office for Miami? Well, what are they willing to give up, and will there be a possibly a third team involved in this trade?
Well, yeah, the rumors have been, Tyler Hero. That's been kind of like the name that's been consistently thrown up there. And there have been a couple reports that they may have to put in a third team to maybe perhaps get rid of so that the signing and the money will make sense. I know that it's not just I know that the Sixers want him. I mean, him and Joel Embiid would be a great maybe that'd be a nice little tandem there. I know Maxey just signed with someone else, so you're not gonna be able to trade him. So what else is out there? Can you? I know the Clippers. I mean, you got a lot of money. I don't know I think they're up against the cap too. I think they're beyond the cap. So they don't have the Heat don't have the package, so they may have to get rid of maybe a Tyler Hero, maybe a Duncan Robinson, and maybe some draft picks to make that, or maybe maybe bring on a third team. So it would be great if him talk about Dame and Butler. I mean, that could be a great little tandem there. But again, like you said, I mean, there's the numbers. They got to kind of have the numbers match. And look, they may have to bring in a third team. And none of the other teams that have been mentioned have a lot of packs I can get. I mean, the Clippers don't really have that much, and the Sixers don't have a lot to to give out either. So they're going to have to figure it out, and hopefully can figure it out before they got some months before training camp. So, but I'm sure Dan's going to want to be his new home, but it's going to be tough. They're going to have to figure out something.
And there's another team that has been coming out of the shadows, according to some people, and that's the San Antonio Spurs. Of course, they selected Victor Wembanyama with their first pick in the NBA draft a couple of weeks ago, and some people said that Damian Lillard has a respect for Popovich. A lot of people do have much respect for Greg Popovich, the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. But I don't know if Dame wants to go there because he's on a different timeline than the San Antonio Spurs. And if you really study the history of talking about San Antonio, they're not into winning as far as doing quick fixes like the Clippers or the Lakers or the Knicks or some of those big market teams. They build through the draft and they develop their players very well. So I don't see Damian Lillard going down to San Antonio. That's just me.
Yeah, they're not in. I don't know who's saying that, but I think they're not in win now mode. I'm talking about the Spurs. I mean, they're kind of like they drafted Wembanyama. I mean, they got a lot of other young players. They're not there yet. If you're Dame's 32 now. If you're Dame, you want to try to find some place where you can win now, and they're not. I know some people would. Yeah, of course, everybody has respect for Pop, but that doesn't mean that they want to play for him, or especially at this point in his career. So it's a little bit weird that people would want to. People will want him to kind of be him and Pop together. I don't think that's going to happen. They're not in that point where they're in win now mode. So the 5 teams mentioned, the 3 teams mentioned, are all in win now mode. And look, they just got to figure out a way to like we've been saying, they may have to bring in another team to to kind of make that thing happen. Now it'll be, like I said, it'll be interesting though. But like I said, I think it will have to. They're gonna have to bring in the third team because I think none of the money doesn't match, and you're gonna have to. And no one has, a lot of them don't have the pick, so or the young talent in their arsenal. So you may have to maybe bring in, unless if you're the Clippers, you trade PG and Dave straight up. I don't think you're gonna do that. The Sixers, they don't really, I don't know what their cap situation is. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're gonna try to figure out something before training camp. They got a couple of months, but it's gonna be cutting it close.
Are the Cubs and White Sox headed in opposite directions? And we had some fireworks, literally, both on and off the field over the weekend in the world of Major League Baseball. We'll discuss that and a whole lot more as you're listening to this special edition of the Wednesday party of Second City Sports. I'm Sid. That's Akina. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on the special Wednesday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGill, the Twitter, and at Keenan's Go again, the IG.
We have less than 85 minutes left or so in this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If we have any questions or comments for us, you can always look us up on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, Sid. We're gonna keep the NBA trade talk, NBA free agency talk going in just a little bit. We'll do that later on in the show, but we're gonna come back and talk. We're gonna talk some baseball. We'll start with some of the neither the Sox or the Cubs have been okay. Although the Cubs did hang on yesterday, against the Brewers 7-6, to split that series. They actually will play the rubber match later today, and also, of course, the Sox lose the opener against the Toronto Blue Jays, a tough one there, despite a pretty solid outing by Lucas Giolito. What do you think? I mean, unfortunately, okay, we'll start with the Sox, I guess. And unfortunately, you barely avoid the sweep against one of the worst teams in the league. Okay, and you almost lost that one. You almost got swept. You probably should have gotten swept, but good for them for avoiding that. Of course, you thought that Luis Robert, Jr. Congrats to him for making his first All-Star game. We'll talk about that a little bit, but unfortunately, Bo Bichette pulled out a two-run home run, that broke the game open for the Blue Jays. Of course, winning that game. They play game 2 tonight. So, Sid, what do you think about your Sox this week, my friend?
No, you kind of predicted it on our last show last Friday that they could lose 2 out of 3 at Oakland. They did. Like you said, they shouldn't gotten their asses swept because there was some embarrassing baseball over the weekend. But that's neither here or there. But last night, you had a chance to steal a game, I thought, from the Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto has been struggling as well. They got swept by Boston over the weekend, and they had the day off just like you did. But the Sox relief last night, it wasn't much of a relief. Joe Kelly, I'm about sick of him. He can go for all I care. And he gave up that 2-run home run to Vlad Guerrero Jr., which is still going at this point, and which gave Toronto a win. But like you said, congratulations to Luis Robert on making the All-Star. He's been the most consistent of the White Sox players on offense since May the 1st. And the home run that he hit last night was a towering shot in the 5th inning, which gave the Sox the lead briefly at 3-2. Now, as Lakina mentioned with the pitching of Lucas Giolito, he pitched a strong game last night. He only had one mistake, but it was very early in the game. He got locked in even further throughout the game, and he was on point with his pitches, and his command was just excellent. The problem is for the Sox, they can get people on base, but they just cannot get them in. And one great example last night was in the bottom of the 8th inning. Tim Anderson, who's been struggling at the plate as of late, but struggling all season, besides the injuries and whatnot. He hit a ball which hit off the glove of George Springer, and Anderson went to third base. You figure with one out, hey, the Sox can actually tie this game at 3. Of course, that didn't happen. A couple of strikeouts happened, and there goes the air out of the balloon there. So the White Sox, they can get them on offensively. They just can't get them in. Whenever they hit home runs, they can't. It seems like they don't have any men on base, and that's just embarrassing for a team that was expected to do a whole lot more this year. And so now they're 37-50, 7 games behind the Minnesota Twins for first place. We'll give you an update on what the rest of the teams in the division did in just a moment. But as far as the Sox are concerned, if you're a realistic White Sox fan, I think it's time for them to back up the truck, not do a full rebuild, but some of those veterans that you have on your team that really has some value, like a Lucas Giolito, like a Joe Kelly, like the Kendall Graveman. It's time for those veterans to be dealt with for some reasonable prospects and some major league ready players. And GM Rick Hahn spoke to media yesterday and basically reiterated what he's been saying over the last month or so. Oh, we have time. We still have a half a season left, but the trade deadline is coming up upon us in about 3 weeks on August 2nd. We'll see what our club ends up then, thinking that this run that they've been waiting on for a year and a half is supposed to happen. So far, it has to happen in terms of winning. The Sox team needs to win about 10, 11 games out of the next 15. Right now, I just don't see it happening. They may win this Toronto series. They may show a fight against St. Louis, but they still have a long way to go.
Oh, sorry about that, folks. I disappeared for a little bit. But yeah, like I said, I think, look, the only reason why they're still about 6.5 out because even though the Twins actually have won a couple in a row, but like I said, I mean, I'm glad that Rick Hahn has kind of made a point to say that everyone's pretty much available to be traded. So I think that's what for about a month. So I think that's probably what's going to end up happening. Unfortunately, I know Giglio right before it started last night. I know he said that I don't want to be traded, but it looks like that's probably what's going to happen. I think Lance Lynn is probably going to get traded. I think maybe
he can go too.
Maybe Tim Anderson, who he's actually been hitting the ball pretty well lately. I'm talking about TA, so maybe a new setting for him might be warranted. But I'm at that point where I'm kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. Let's just put the Sox out of their misery. Like I'm over this team at this point. Like you've seen some guys show some flashes. Some of the other guys have shown some flashes, but I'm over this team at this point. So like I really, it is just like I said, I don't understand why this team's still only 7 out, but it is what it is with them. But let's go to the north side and talk some Cubs here. Now the Cubs probably should have won 2 in a row against the Brewers, but I digress. They did barely hung on for a win in 10 innings at 7-6. Yeah, you could probably say I know Rossi was not very happy with some of the calls. They called the closer right as the Cubs were I think 6-2 after. Then they closed the roof. Then there was some balls and strikes. He totally lost it. If you saw his post game presser, he totally lost it. So, but yeah, I mean, look, I think that was definitely a win the Cubs desperately needed, especially after losing that opener in the floor on Monday. So they have the rematch tonight, so we'll see if they can, at least take the series. At the very least, you can do that. But yeah, what do you think about that Cubs Brewers series so far?
Yeah, you mentioned they have 2 games left, so hopefully you can take the series or at worst split them. But the Monday's game and Tuesday's game were very close, mirroring each other, as we talked about all season long with the men in blue, Lakina, that the starting staff has been pitching very well, especially recently. And also, as we said, too, this offense can average between 4 and 6 runs a game. That starting pitching will be in great shape. Now, Drew Smiley didn't pitch well the other day, and I know they blew that 6-0 lead on Monday. It almost happened again yesterday, which the game was sent to extra innings thanks to that bullpen. But that bullpen is in dire straits right now, Lakina, and hopefully that Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins are paying attention to it, which I believe they are. But if the Cubs are any way, shape, or form going to sneak into the playoffs this year, perhaps win this division, which me personally, I think they need to do because they NL wild card race is going to be a log jam as well. They need to win this division, and they need to make a move right now for a bullpen armor too. And also too, and we'll talk about this with our guy Eugene McIntosh of the Bigs at the top of next hour. Can they get a third baseman as well? Because it looks like Patrick Wisdom. We know that he's not the answer. Nate Magical, he had a big hit on Monday, and he actually's done well with the glove. But is he a long-term answer at third base? I don't think so. So the top 2 needs for the Cubs, and I saw in this series so far with the Brewers, and it actually has been an issue all year. Third base, but most importantly, bullpen help.
Yeah, that bullpen's really been, kind of like a I want to say comical, but it's sort of like just weird how all that is kind of shaping up. And look, unfortunately, that they were the ones that that's why the Cubs lost that lead 6-0 lead on Monday, and then they almost blew it again yesterday. So it's definitely going to be one of those things where it's going to be an adventure. Hopefully, Jed Hoyer and Connor Hawkins do bring on a middle relief at the very least, or maybe a closer probably. So maybe they can try to see stabilize that bullpen. I think that's been a really big problem for the Cubs. So it'll be interesting to see what they do here. I mean, they do have a very tough they have a tough schedule, to finish out the first half of the season. I know they're doing this thing with the Brewers. If you can split those 4 with the Brewers, I mean, you can. That's a win. If you can win 3 out of 4, even better. So gain a couple games there. You got this weekend. We'll talk about that on Friday. But you got to go at Yankee Stadium. So that's not going to be an easy task because they've been on a kind of a roll. They'll talk about the Yankees have. So you want to try to at least split some of these series so you can probably gain some games and maybe get within 4 or 5 of that division as we get further to the right before the All-Star break coming up.
Oh, it's very possible for this Cubs team to get within 4 or 5 games of this division right before the All-Star break. Because as we talk about with the Cincinnati Reds, they've been excited to watch, but I don't see that team just run away with this division. It's possible, but I don't think it's likely. Of course, St. Louis is struggling. Pittsburgh, I know they had a big win against the Dodgers on the road last night, but they've been struggling ever since that hot April, early May start. And of course, Milwaukee, they're the poor version of the White Sox. They just don't have the big names offensively like the White Sox do. But this division is up for grabs, and the Cubs, hopefully they can streak together another good hot streak and take advantage of it. But I do want to point out these two players quickly before we move on for the Cubs as far as offensively is concerned. Aren't you impressed by Dansby Swanson? Congrats to him on making the All-Star team. I didn't think he was going to make it in the Cubs uniform, but congrats to him. And congrats to Justin Steele as well. I thought injury, his stay on the injury list will cost him, but it didn't. So thank goodness for that. But aren't you impressed by Nico Horner, Ian Happ, and Swanson? Their bats have really woken up these last few days.
Well, Swanson had, remember he has a World Series rant. People forget about that. He one of the main reasons why the Braves won a couple of years ago. So I think, I was not surprised, that he's been able to, show a little bit there with that hitting for the Cubs. Horner's been really solid. Happ, has proven that he is worth that extra money that he got, right before the season started. Horner, got the extra money too. So I think they've been sort of stabilizing that. I know Morel's been struggling a little bit lately, but that's usually what happens when you don't have a guy that's out there consistently. Steele's been a great surprise in the pitching because I never thought that he's a veteran guy. I mean, I never would have thought that he would probably be, going to, I think this is his first All-Star game. So for the fact that he's been able to do that, I mean, that's been amazing what he's been able to accomplish. I think he's among the top 10 in the National League in RBI. So, offensive RBIs against, ERA, I should say. So easy for me to say, all those letters. But yeah, I mean, look, I think he's been a great surprise. Great to see him go into the All-Star game as well. I think that the Cubs need consistency. Look, if they could just get that bullpen together, I think they could be right there, within distance. I know they're still within distance. I mean, they're only 7 games out. Cincinnati, again, as we go into the rest of the MLB, I know they've been playing the Nationals. They won the first 2. Okay, yeah, yippee. But I mean, the pitching is still kind of questionable. I know the pitching's actually been okay. I just don't think they can keep it up. I just don't think they remind me a lot about the Marlins. They got a lot of exciting guys, but I don't think they can hang on to it for the long haul. I just don't think they will. I think after the All-Star break, I think they're all going to come back to earth a little bit. So we'll see what happens with them. Another team that I think is sort of, since we're talking, like I said, we're talking about the rest of the MLB here, but it's going to be interesting for me, especially in the AL East. I know that the Rays have lost 3 in a row. They've kind of struggled a little bit these last few games. They lost 2 out of 3 against the Mariners, and of course they lost an opener against the Phillies. This could just be the ebbs and flows of the season, but Baltimore is right there. They're at 6, but they're right there at 6 back. The Yankees are also right there too. So it looks like the Rays might be starting to fall back to earth a little bit. But again, we'll see, as they finish up here. But I'm not too worried, but you still got your Baltimore and the Yankees are right behind them. So we'll see what happens with that. Cleveland, I know the Guardians have been coming up and down lately too. They split their first 2 games against the Braves. We'll get to the Braves in a second. They're sending a lot of guys to the All-Star game. David Fry had a big hit in the 10th inning to break that win streak that the Braves had. So we'll see where they are. By then, they also right there. So they're only 1 game back of the Twins. So we'll see where the Guardians are by then. By the time we finish up here. But yeah, I think this is going to be, and also too, Texas. I know with Texas, they kind of, they lost 2 out of 3 to Houston. Well, 3 out of 4, I should say, to Houston. They did get a nice little bounce back with that win, their series opener against Boston. But, we'll see if they can kind of keep it up there. They're still within it because I guess, the Astros, unfortunately, they've been kind of up and down lately too after that series win. So they've won 3 in a row too. I'm talking about Houston. So yeah, it could be a little bit back and forth in that AL West.
As we said before, with the American League West, Houston will be heard from. As we talked about before, they had a bunch of injuries to start the year, in particular with Jose Altuve. I know he's back now. Of course, they had a couple of injuries to their starting staff, but Houston's a strong ball club. And as we said early in the year, they're going to be heard from again. And will they take this AL West from Texas? I'm not sure, but Texas is going to have to sweat it out in the second half because Houston is coming. Now, back to your original question, Keenan, going back to the National League, who do you have more faith in, Cincinnati or the Miami Marlins? I think the Miami Marlins, because they have a stronger but young starting staff, and they have the offense to go with it with Chaz Chisholm Jr. He's starting to heat up because don't forget about Luis Ariz. Will he bat 400? Me personally, I hope so. I don't think he will, but at least he's going for that. And they have a balanced lineup. It's not going to scare you. They don't have a big boppers of 40 home runs or more in that lineup, but they make solid contact and they can run the bases very well. And so I have more faith in the Miami Marlins than the Cincinnati Reds. Although the Cincinnati Reds, I wouldn't sneeze at either, but Florida is more complete than Cincinnati right now.
Yeah, they still got some pitching issues with Cincy, so I guess I'm not ready to say Cincy's going to win that NL Central. I just don't think that's going to happen. But again, we'll see. But going to the rest of the going back to that, the rest of the NL East. I know they lost to, like I said, they lost to the Guardians yesterday, but the Braves are sending 8 guys to the All-Star game, and it's interesting because, for me, I don't think anybody thought that this is as a franchise record for them. And that's the most by any National League team since the 08 Cubs. Remember, they sent 8. They're also the 15 to send 8 players to the All-Star game, with 2 of the prior 4 reaching the World Series. So, we got to go back to 1960, the Pirates, and the 1943 St. Louis Cardinals. Of course, you got Acuna Jr., who's going to his 4th, Ozzie Albies, his 3rd, Austin Riley, his 2nd, Matt Olson also his 2nd, but a bunch of first-timers, Sean Murphy, Orlando Arcia, Bryce Elder, and Spencer Strider. Strider has been incredible. Strider is sort of one of those guys where he could probably very well. Now I know we've talked about him a little bit here. I'm talking about Strider, and he could be right there for the NL Cy Young. I mean, I think he's like right there, like in the top 10. I think he's right up there in wins too. So yeah, he could probably make a case for the NL Cy Young.
Yeah, he's up there with Justin Steele and Marcus Stroman of the Cubs for the Cy Young. He's definitely in that top 3, top 5 candidates for the Cy Young, NL Cy Young. He strikes out a lot of guys. He doesn't give up a lot of hits, and he can pitch with the best of them in baseball. So you should look out for his name. Shout out to our guy Brandon Schutz in the comments. Hello, Brandon. Hope you're doing well. I saw that. He's a Houston guy, and he gave Kyle Tucker, congratulations for making the All-Star game. Congrats to Kyle Tucker making the All-Star game representing the Houston Astros. I know there's been a bunch of injuries on both the NL and the AL side. Of course, Mike Trout is now back on the injury list. Aaron Judge is not going to play. Shohei Ohtani of the Angels left his start yesterday with a blister. Will he play in next Tuesday's All-Star game? We'll see. But those other 2 guys, talking about Judge and Trout, will not play in the All-Star game next Tuesday night in Seattle.
Yeah, it looks like Shohei might actually end up heading not pitching, I guess, because of that blister. So they may want to kind of limit him on that front. So we won't be able to see him pitch again in the All-Star game next week. So that's a little bit of a bummer there. But yeah, I mean, look, a lot of those guys. I mean, like Judge isn't going to be there because, of course, he's still nursing the ankle injury. And some of the others, we'll talk about the All-Star starters, teams for the rosters. Were there any guys that that surprised you? Were there some guys that kind of let you scratching your head, like, okay, why is he on here? And there actually are people that are saying that maybe they should kind of do away with every team's got to be represented rule. So but yeah, I mean, I know Brett Rooker has been one of the few bright spots for Oakland, so I guess that's okay that he is going. I think this is his 2nd. I mean, it is what it is with that one. What do you think about that whole rule? I think they should do away with that.
I think they should do away with it. I get it, especially back way back when, up until a few years ago, you had a bunch of Red Sox. You have a bunch of Yankee players representing the American League. I know some people were sick of that, don't want to see it. I get it from that perspective. But if you're a bad team like Oakland or the White Sox, or if your numbers really stand out compared to the rest of the teams that are on good teams, you should be represented as an all-star, but not every team should be represented. I'm sorry. Now, who got left off the roster originally was Rondo Franco of Tampa Bay. I know he got on late because of the injuries, as I mentioned earlier. So good for him that he made the all-star team. But I think they should get rid of that rule of every team should be represented, because never every team has an all-star league, and they really don't.
Yeah, Josiah Gray is going for Washington. You probably say that maybe.
Do they deserve an all-star? Talking about Washington? No.
No, probably not. So yeah, I mean, it's always I hated that they did that. I mean, after that whole, I know, yeah, they think like the third of the roster was like Yankees, players, and people got pissed about that. So it's like, oh, we'll put every team's got to have at least one representative. I mean, like, look, I think there's it. Well, I mean,
does Colorado deserve an all-star representative? No.
Well, yeah, I think Robert Jr. He's earned his way into the all-star game. I know.
I said Colorado.
Well, yeah, I know what you said, but but I'm talking about you said the White Sox. I mean, yeah, I mean, look, Robert's been playing, Junior's been playing pretty well lately. I think he's been hitting the ball very well, so I think he deserved that also. I know, Elias Diaz, for Colorado. Yeah, do you really think that they deserve an all-star? No, but I think, look, it's just silly that they have to put that dumb rule in there. They need to do away with that. I think it's just silly at this point to kind of have, everybody's got to be represented just because, this is not how it is. So it's just sort of weird. We'll ask our buddy Eugene. I know he'll have some very strong opinions about that. So what else caught your eye in MLB this week, Ed?
Speaking of the AL East, of course, the New York Yankees take the first two games of their series against the Baltimore Orioles, including yesterday's 8-4 victory. The Baltimore Orioles, not once, but I believe twice, had bases loaded, and they couldn't scratch across any runs. It looks like the Yankees are starting to come. Hopefully they can get Aaron Judge back healthy right after the All-Star break, because their team is much, much better with him in it than without it. Of course, you have Garrett Cole, hopefully Carlos Rodon, who they signed as a starting pitcher in the offseason, can come back to the Yankees after the All-Star break. Of course, you got Giancarlo Stanton. He had his injury issues too. So as soon as they get Judge back in the line, then the Yankees that will be that much dangerous. And don't forget the Yankees bullpen has been a key to their success over the last month or so. So let's not overlook that.
Yeah, they've actually been pretty solid. I'm talking about the bullpen. So yeah, I think if they can, again, it'll be at the Cubs' expense, unfortunately. But if they could gain a couple of games, get right there just to get maybe within 5 or 6. They could probably end up, they play the Rays a lot during the second half, so that could probably end up being for the division. And they hopefully can get Judge back, and we'll see what happens there. My Mariners actually been playing pretty well. They've won 4 in a row. Like I said, they've won the series against the Rays, and they're trying to get the sweep later today against the Giants, in San Fran. I think they're starting to kind of get going there too. And look, I don't think the Raiders are going to pull away from that AL West. I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're definitely, if they can, like I said, if they can gain a game again, same thing with everyone else. If the Mariners can gain a couple of games, get in that within about 5 or 6 of that AL West, I think they can definitely be right there and say, hey, Leo, don't forget about us, especially the Angels, those injuries. They start to kind of come back to bite in the butt, so they can kind of sneak in there and perhaps say, hey, look, we're still here. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Now, the Dodgers, I mean, like I said, I know they lost a tough one against Pittsburgh. They'll try to win that series later on tonight. But if they can kind of get right there, I know the Diamondbacks have been, like I said, I don't think the Diamondbacks are going to be up there after the break. I just don't see it happening. So I think for me, I think the Dodgers just get back to the consistency of that bullpen. That's been really the problem. Talking about the bullpen not being not being too good. But I'm looking forward to see what the Dodgers can do and perhaps maybe give and also to the Giants. I know they've been struggling, like I said, with the Mariners series. But if the Dodgers could be like the Dodgers that we've seen the last few years, they could probably sneak back up there and perhaps get that division, NL West division lead and not give it back.
We talk about the Dodgers having a lot of new players because they got rid of some of the aging veterans last year after that team won 111 games and being ousted in the first round by the San Diego Padres. Jason Hayward, the former Chicago Cub, he's having a resurging year. And also, too, the Dodgers are like the Cubs. They need some bullpen help. You think GM and his name escapes me for the moment, but he used to work down in Tampa Bay. But you don't think he's looking right you don't think he's looking for bullpen help right now? I think it's going to ease up the life, making life a little bit easier for manager Dave Roberts. Andrew Freeman
Brennan.
is his name. Sorry,
Yeah,
Andrew Freeman, who used to work with Tampa Bay. You don't think he's on the phone right now looking for bullpen help for the Dodgers because they didn't blow. They had a reputable bullpen arm, and they'll have probably about 5-6 more wins right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's going to be the key here. And if you think about it, so like I said, we'll figure. I'm sure they'll figure it out. I'm sure, like I said, I know Freeman's going to be calling ahead to see what's out there because they're sure
he may call the South Side.
Yeah, maybe so. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Now we're gonna take a quick break. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 is coming next. Our buddy Eugene McIntosh from the Bigs will join us to talk some baseball, and of course, you got NASCAR that happened over the weekend right there in the heart of the city. We'll talk about that. Some pretty solid ratings there for them, but for NBC. And also, too, of course, some sports media news. Also, too, some other NBA free agent signings, as some guys have decided to stay where they're at, while others have, said bye-bye to their respective teams. So we'll talk more about that coming up next. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. More baseball talk about buddy Eugene McIntosh coming up right after this.
No, I don't know, though. I'm scared. I mean, you're
Do you know that you're in my lane?
No, not at all.
Are you not paying attention? Are you texting?
I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6.
It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention.
I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports on the special Wednesday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow Lakina McGee on the Twitter, and Lakina's going to get the IG.
We have less than an hour left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, especially for our next guest, you can always hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. Lakina, let's not waste any time as we bring on our next guest to talk Chicago baseball and covering the NASCAR event that took place in downtown Chicago this last past holiday weekend. Here comes our guy from the Bigs, is Mr. Gino, a.k.a. Eugene McIntosh. Gino, what's going on, man? Welcome back to the show.
What's going on, y'all? How's everything?
Good.
Yeah, we're doing fine.
Trying to stay dry.
Man, tell me about it. It was torrential rainfall this weekend, but I feel like it was much needed. But, you know, even through all of that, they got the races done, and I think overall it was a successful event for NASCAR, and I'm looking forward to the next 2 years since they have a 3-year contract.
We'll talk about before we get. We'll talk about the we'll talk about the NASCAR race in Chicago that just happened here over the weekend in just a second. But let's talk some baseball. I know you're on your way to Milwaukee for those last couple of games for the Cubs against the Brewers. The Cubs, were able to sneak out a win yesterday. Thank goodness. They almost blew another one. Thank God they didn't. So what do you think? We've been talking about for the last few months about the bullpen and the third base. What do you think? Do you think the Cubs will be buyers or sellers during the trade deadline, Eugene?
I think right now, these next couple weeks, obviously they're very important. But I mean, you can look at it two ways. I mean, I feel like they need to play their best. I mean, obviously you want to always play your best brand of baseball, but I feel like the Cubs are definitely a better team than their record shows. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're a good team. The NL Central is a very bad division, along with the AL Central. This is probably the worst that those two divisions have been, and as long as I can remember, if you want to be honest. But at this point, I think if they can string some wins together, they will be buyers at the deadline. But yeah, it's tough to see. But I feel like they need to. Just to force Jed Hoyer's hand one way or the other. They need to fit. They need to be right there on the cusp so we can see which way Jed Hoyer is going to lean. But I do think that this team is better than their record shows. And, David Ross is always getting all the blame. But at what point do we point to the players, the talent level, and the guys that put this thing together?
And speaking of Cubs front office, Gino, what's going on with that quote-unquote standstill between the front office and starting pitcher Marcus Stroman? As people may or may not may not know that Marcus Stroman is a pending free agent at the end of the year, and assuming that the Cubs are in it come the trade deadline, which I think they will. I cannot see the Cubs trading him unless Marcus Stroman himself says that I don't want to be here any longer. But what's this standstill between Marcus Stroman and the Cubs management? Do you think something will eventually be worked out? Because he's been their best player, perhaps their best starting pitcher on the team this year.
I mean, I'm always looking at things in totality. I try to examine every angle, and I look at it from a couple different angles. I look at the character, and I look at the person himself. And Marcus Stroman, when you look at the direction that the Cubs want to go, and when you see the recent signings of a guy like Nico Horner, who I love, Ian Happ, who I've grown to like and got to know a little bit better over the last couple of years, those are the type of players that they want to be in leadership roles for this next great Cubs team. So when you look at Marcus Stroman, if you hear about, guys who are from reporters who've covered him before in Toronto and in New York, they say he's more of a me guy. It's all about him. Even when he tweets about, helping like the LGBTQ donation that he gives, or when he, talks to these youth groups and stuff, it always comes back to him, so to say. And that could be true to a certain extent, but from my experience with Stroman, he's a very good guy. I know he's in tune with his body. He takes great care of himself, his mind, his soul and everything. So I mean, he would be a guy that I would be looking for to be a part of my staff moving forward. But when you look at his age and his trajectory, at the age of 32, you would think that most of those guys would probably have hit their ceiling, and now it's all about the staying power. But I think in Marcus Stroman's case, he is a guy that I think could continue this level of pitching later on this season and in the next couple of years. So I would be signing Marcus Stroman if I was the Cubs, but I just don't think that he's the type of guy that they want to be a part of this next great Cubs team, because they're not winning, or they're not going to be in contention with this team anytime soon.
Now, what about Justin Steele? How big of a surprise for the Cubs? I mean, he's going to be going to his first All-Star game. And definitely could make a case for him. Maybe not necessarily for the NL Cy Young, but he definitely could be like right in that second tier. So what do you think about how Justin Steele's been this year?
Justin Steele has been great, and I may be one of the only guys, but I'm not surprised. Maybe I didn't see him leading the NL in ERA, but I definitely saw a guy who was on an upward trajectory. I saw the amount of work that he puts in. I mean, he's not overpowering. His fastball may top out at 93 or 94, but he has great control. He has, he's able to use all four corners. He's able to hit every piece of the zone. And, he's a humble guy. He doesn't say much. He just goes about his business, and he lets the work show. So I'm not surprised that Justin Steele's success, again, maybe not an under 2.30 ERA, surprising, but he was definitely a guy that I thought, that could be, and in the upper part of the Cubs rotation. Maybe not ace stuff, but like I said, in this division where if you make a 7-3 run over the next 10 days, you could find yourself right there at first place. So I'm happy with Justin Steele. He's always a good guy, always gives his time. He's always available. And like I said, he doesn't talk much. He just lets his work show. So very happy to see him get his first All-Star nod.
We know that Cubs outfield has been suffering through injuries all year long with Seiya Suzuki and Cody Bellinger, who's been back in the lineup for the last couple of weeks. But talk to us about Mike Tauchman, who's been filling in very well. He's made a couple of good plays in the outfield, but he's doing most of the talking with his bat. Talk to us about Mr. Tauchman.
Yeah, Talk has been one of those guys, man. It's a guy who's, he's been around, a lot. He's had his share of ups and downs in the league, went over to Japan and played last year, and now he's finally getting that opportunity. For a lot of guys, man, it's all about the opportunity and seizing it. And, he's come in and done it, especially with the injury to Cody Bellinger and, him coming in and being that lefty bat that the Cubs need desperately, and being a pretty good outfielder. Like you said, Sid, he's made some really good plays out there, and just being a guy that you can count on. Like, there were no expectations when he was called up, but he's taken it and he's run with it. So he's definitely a hard bat to get out of the lineup, especially David Ross likes to play those matchups. So, there are always more righty starters than lefties in the league. So when there's that righty starter, Talk is going to be in the lineup, and it's cool to see him, Rossi kind of switching things up. Nico's been in the leadoff position a lot, but the way Talk is swinging, he's a guy that takes his pitches. He's a guy that if he gets his pitch, he's not going to wait on it. So just being a guy that you can depend on in that lineup has been really cool to see. So, with first base and third base, now JY has come up and he's been pretty good so far. But with first base and third base really being like open season, Cody can play. Cody Bellinger he's a plus defender wherever you throw him. So with him coming off that injury and kind of wanting to limit the damage on his knee, that's even more of an open for Talk to kind of claim that center field spot. So another guy that I'm happy to see taking advantage of opportunity.
Absolutely. And let's talk to the South Side for a second. I know that's not your beat, Eugene, but I know that you kind of keep an eye on what's going on over there in the South Side. Now, Luis Robert Jr. has been, he's been really good. I mean, go to his first All-Star game. We'll see if Jay Burke can somehow get in there too. What do you think the Sox are? Are they? I know they'll probably very likely end up being sellers during the trade deadline, and if so, which players do you think could be on their way out?
I think everybody should be available to go. And it's funny, Lakina, that's not my beat, but I do hang out over there when the Cubs are out of town just so I can, keep my pulse on the situation over there. I was just over there last night. And that's just not a good ball club, man. There's no energy there. Those guys, they don't play with any passion. Obviously TA's got a lot of things going on with his outside situation. He's been injured a lot, so he hasn't been that spark to kind of lead that offense. When you see a guy like Jake Berger, who's not, let's be real, he's had a pretty good season, but he's not an everyday third baseman. He's not an everyday MLB player. So when you look at this team overall, they're just not a good baseball team. And if I'm Rick Hahn and, the guys in charge, everybody's up to go. Lucas Giolito, when they were on the road against Oakland, he basically came out and said he didn't want to be traded. And I think there's more to it than him just wanting to be on the White Sox. I think a guy, I don't think the guy in a pressure situation, going to a team that's in the fold trying to make a run and you really have to depend on him. So when I heard him say that, I'm kind of examining the situation. I'm like, I think it was more to that. But Luis Robert has been the best player on the team this far. Glad to see him get that All-Star nod. And if I was him, when I step out on that field, I think he's as good as he's been in center field. I think he can be that much better. But anytime he steps on the field, I feel like he thinks that he's the best player out there. He could be a 5-tool player. He just has to continue to grow. But I think, playing baseball on that side of town where it's just, there's no energy, there's no passion, it's all bad vibes around there. So if I'm Rick Hahn, everybody is up for sale.
We're talking Chicago baseball and more with Eugene McIntosh from the Bigs Media right here on Second City Sports. Sid LaKinna hanging on with you. We're live and live in color on Sports Zone Chicago. Staying with the White Sox once more, Eugene, you brought up Tim Anderson. The team has an option for him for the next 2 years, which they can pay him up to $27 million in total. Do you think it's a great idea for Tim Anderson to be moved somewhere else, or do you think he's going to stick it out here for at least for next year?
TA doesn't want to be here. Sorry to break it to White Sox fans, but he's not going to say it. But those that know, I'm not going to use no sources or none of that because I don't have to. TA doesn't want to be here, and he needs to go. I think he needs to find his next home. Change of scenery is good a lot of times, and I think he's just overstayed his welcome here. I think there was that small window of opportunity for him to become a huge a superstar, in the game. But, you only have that small window because there's always the next couple guys who are ready. And we've seen Shohei Ohtani and the next group of Julio Rodriguez and all of these next wave of guys who are going to be the face of the league. So I think TA would be best. Hey, the Los Angeles Dodgers need a shortstop right now. And I think that would be a perfect place for TA to go and just fit in. He doesn't have to be the star of the team. They got Mookie Betts. They got Freddie Freeman. They got guys who've been there already. And, I think they can come in and kind of just let TA be him and move him down in the lineup. I think that's another thing with Pedro Grifol. Like, why is TA still hitting second in your lineup when he's hitting under 230? Like, you're not helping him out at all, and you're not helping your ball club at all. So I would love to see TA. I love TA. He's a cool guy, but he doesn't want to be here, and I think he needs to go somewhere else where he can just go fit in. And you heard his comments when he was on the podcast with Ryan Clark and those guys. He said he felt alone. He didn't have any friends here. I think Giolito is probably the closest guy to him, but other than that, he feels like an outcast. So it's time for TA to go, man. Bottom line.
Yeah, maybe a change of series is probably what he needs. Let's talk about some of the good parts of the Sox. We actually found some. Liam Hendricks, of course, he's nursing an injury to, I think, his elbow right now. But, of course, the most important thing is that he is a cancer survivor. He is going to be getting a special award at the ESPYs next Wednesday. What do you think? I mean, do you see him getting traded, or is he going to try to maybe stick it out for the rest of the season, considering, make sure all the tests is all good? So what do you think, Liam Hendricks' future is?
Yeah, that's a good question, especially, with the lingering injuries and, just coming back, being a survivor. Big shout out to that because that's a tough thing to do, and then come right back into the fire and try to regain everything that you lost going through chemo. So big shout out to Liam Hendriks. But I think there are a lot of teams out there. I mean, you can never have enough pitching, and I think when you're looking for Liam Hendriks has electric stuff. Like when he's at his best, he's one of the best. But when their team's looking out, and they're going to examine every piece of it, and it's sad, but they're going to look at the cancer factor, and they're going to look at these lingering injuries, and that's going to play a part of him being dealt or not. But I think he wants to be here. I think he's found a home in Chicago. I think Rick Hahn and those guys have kind of convinced him that he could be one of those veteran guys that can kind of lead those next batch of troops to the promised land where they want to go. But like I said, the team is just not looking good for them right now and anytime soon. So it would be interesting to hear Liam Hendriks' outlook on this as well. So maybe that'll be something that when he's available, we'll see what he has to say about it.
Let's move over to the NBA, Eugene, and talk about the Chicago Bulls. They signed 2 free agents over the weekend, Torrey Craig and Javon Carter. On paper, it solves their shooting their shooting woes. I know for those who listen back on the replay on our podcast, Eugene's rolling his eyes right now. Since the Bulls are right up against the cap, what do you think about the moves, and do you think they're going to make a big trade or two during this offseason?
But man, I'm not. I like Javon Carter. He's a local kid, Maywood kid, Proviso East. Hard nosed, tough. He can shoot the ball. He's a good point guard. But when you look at the rest of the point guards in the NBA, where does he fare? Like, is he? Mm-hmm. He's at least in the middle, and I don't. That's not it when with the rest of the team hasn't filled out yet. So. I mean, I like the signing. Like I said, I like JC. I think he can be a steady point guard for the Bulls. But when you look at Torrey Craig, and yeah, he shot 38, 39% from 3 in Phoenix, but that's when you got 2 of the best scorers and 2 of the top 5 scorers in the league last season in KD and Devin Booker, and you got Chris Paul. The floor is so wide open on the drive and kick that Torrey Craig is getting wide open shots. But when you come here to Chicago, it's a different ball game you're playing, especially if they're going to run this thing back with DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. Like, the floor is not as open. So I'm not sure how he's going to fare in this system. But again, he's another guy who can play a couple different positions. He gives the Bulls front court some depth, and he can defend. So I'm not mad at either of the signings, man, but are those game-changing signings? Not by any means. And until the Cubs, until the Bulls make a major splash, Arturas Karnisovas needs to be on the hot seat ASAP.
Let's talk about some nice things. I don't want Eugene to get upset. Let's talk about the NASCAR race over the weekend. I saw your photos on Twitter and a few other posts that I got a chance to cover it. I mean, it was very wet. Well, we'll say that. I mean, with the rain, the tourists were, I think they got about 10 or 12 inches up there, near downtown, and like the street races, the way it was set up. I mean, there was like standing water in some spots, and they were able. Actually, the good news is they were actually able to get the race in. So, tell us what that experience was like, because those street races, you got 12 turns, and the way it was set up downtown. The backdrop was gorgeous, and the race actually did pretty well. So, what was your experience covering that?
Man, it was outstanding, just to say the least. I'll put it to you like this: like I told Sean Sierra this morning on the Sports Zone show. I didn't even know what NASCAR stood for. So, I had a lot of research to do in a short amount of time. For those that don't know,
you could just ask me, Eugene. I could have told you some of the stuff.
Well, hey, maybe I'm the only idiot out here that doesn't know the NASCAR acronym.
No, you're not.
For those,
you're not.
Hey, for those that are watching and may not know, it is the National Association of Stock Car Auto Racing. Like, I was amazed. Like, that was the first time I'd ever witnessed anything like that. I never watched a NASCAR race on TV. I'm pretty sure if I did, it wouldn't have done it any justice by, the access we had and being as close as we were. like I said in that Twitter post, I don't know if you guys saw it, but that was literally the loudest thing that I've ever heard in my life. And it was amazing to watch these cars, how fast they were going on those straightaways and on those turns. And, you know, I learned about the yellow flag and, you know, just seeing those pile-ups. And it was crazy, man. And, you know, like I said, with them having that 3-year contract and those, you know, them coming back for the next 2 years, you know, the first time around, probably when you do anything, you really don't know what you're doing. So for them to get that under their belts, and now they have some information and some knowledge to kind of go back onto the drawing board and make things better next time. Give the city of Chicago some props for getting the streets ready for those races, because if everybody knows, if you drive downtown or anywhere around the city, these are some of the worst streets of all time. So give the city credit. Give them credit for getting a lot of that water off of the track, because when we got there, you know, they had 10 or 12 trucks like circling the zone, you know, just vacuuming the water up and making it as safe as possible. So it was cool to see the riders. Kyle Busch, when he crashed and ended up in last place and then ended up finishing 5th, it's like, I didn't even think that was possible. So being able to talk to him and understand the techniques and the mindsets of these guys when they're in those cars, and then being on pit row and watching the team and how much it takes to get those guys. Like the driving is like the last part. It's like all the preparation and getting the tires ready and getting the computers ready so they can put the headphones on and be able to communicate with the driver. I learned a lot, and I have a newfound respect for NASCAR drivers. So I can't wait until next year. I need to see you guys there next year.
I wanted to go to a NASCAR race, and hopefully I can be there next year, because watching it on TV, like Lakina said, it was awesome. You know, it showed a great showcase for our city, and our city looks great during the day or during the night, whether it's a NASCAR event or not. But the NBC did it justice, and the city, I think, did it justice as far as showcasing with that NASCAR event. Wrapping up with Eugene McIntosh from It's the Bigs Media right here on Sports Zone Chicago, Second City Sports. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you. Last question for me, Gino. Going back to basketball, your guy, Damian Lillard. I like him too, but I know you're a big super fan of his. Of course, the stories came out over the weekend that he put in their trade request. Of course, one of the teams that are listed on the 5 teams, if you believe the reports, are the Miami Heat. Do you think that he gets his wish of joining the Miami Heat, or do you think we're going to see him go to another team that we're not talking about?
It's all about what the Portland Trail Blazers can get in return. Obviously, we know Dame loves Bam Adebayo. That's one of his better friends in the league, and him and Joe Cronin, the GM, they have this. You know, the Blazers have basically treated Dame like a part of the front office when they talk about the future and, trying to bring in free agents and keep trying to build around them. But, the writing was on the wall when they signed Scoot Henderson with the 3rd pick. And, we didn't hear anything about a trade in the next couple of days. So, Portland, it's like, how much more can you do? Like, it's up to free agents to want to come to Portland. Obviously, that's not going to happen. I know Dame a little bit. I'm pretty sure that he thinks that any time that he's on the court healthy, regardless of who he has on the court with him, they always have a chance to win the ball game. But, he's getting up in years. He still has a couple years of his prime left. But, yeah, it's time to move on, man. A lot of people, they've been blowing my phone up. And I'm like, at the end of the day, that's his decision. That's his life that he has to deal with. But I'm pretty sure, he's got 450 million reasons why wherever he goes, he'll be happy. So I'm pretty sure Portland wants to do him a solid. He's been loyal to them for the last 11 years. So I'm pretty sure they want to do him a solid and give him the opportunity that he wants. But on the flip side, it's business, and it has to make sense for them as well. But I feel like they'll make it happen, and I feel like we'll be seeing Damian Lillard in a Miami Heat uniform.
Last question for me, Eugene. Is there an NBA free agent out there that's still hasn't found a home yet? Is there maybe the Bulls could maybe try to go after if they can? I
don't see a free agent, but there's always that that ability to make a trade. And I think that's where the Bulls are going to have to go, and it's going to have to be DeMar DeRozan. I think they're sold on Zach LaVine. Obviously, they gave him the max deal. I'm pretty sure they've dangled him out there a little bit, but they haven't gotten any takers. But the trade is going to have to be DeMar DeRozan. I like DeMar. He's, again, another good guy. I have no bad things to say about him. But the way his game, the league is advancing and progressing and changing every couple of years. So I think his game is kind of outdated. And the way the Bulls want and need to play, they have to move DeMar DeRozan. Now, what they get for him in exchange, I don't know what that's going to be. But I think it starts there. It definitely starts there. So, again, until I see Karnisovas and Eversley and those guys make a big splash, the Bulls are at the bottom of my list. I think, you know the saying, if you continue to do the same things over and over with no progression, that's what we call insanity. And if insanity was in the dictionary, Arturas Karnisovas' picture would be next to it.
On that note, that's been Eugene McIntosh from It's the Bigs Media. You can follow him on Twitter at Stay Humble. Once again, at Stay Humble on Twitter. You can also find him on Facebook and Instagram as well. Gino, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us once again here on Second City Sports. Have a safe trip to Milwaukee, and we'll talk again soon. Tell us what's coming up for It's the Bigs Media.
Man, we got a couple things coming up, man. I don't want to kind of, I won't say count the chickens before they hatch, because they've kind of hatched already. But when we make the announcement, I'll make sure that you guys hear it first. But we got some things brewing. We got a non-for-profit organization that we're about to do some big things with. And, Herb Howard on our Bears Beat Bears training camp starts in the next couple weeks. So Herb is going to be out here doing that. We'll be continuing our baseball coverage, getting ready for Bulls, and just keeping our pulse on what's going on in Chicago sports, man. But much love to you guys, man. I got all the love in the world for y'all, and as long as I'm available, I'm a phone call, a text, or a DM away. So y'all keep banging, and much love to y'all.
Right back at you, Eugene. And tell Terrence we said
Yes.
hi, and he owes us an interview too. It's been a minute since we had him on, so
I got you. I'll put the pressure on him for you.
We know you will. So yeah, safe travels to Milwaukee, and we'll definitely talk again soon. And thanks for joining us as always.
All right, anytime. Much love.
All right.
All right, thanks, Gino.
Thanks, Gene. All right, that is Eugene McIntosh from the Bigs here on Second City Sports on Sports Social Chicago. So we're gonna wrap things up here, and of course, we'll talk a little bit more about that NASCAR race that happened in Chicago over the weekend, and the Rays were pretty, like I said, they were actually pretty solid. And also, too, of course, we'll talk some other sports media news as more ESPN layoffs have come down the pipe, including some very familiar names. And also, we'll get Sid to tell me what's his favorite free agency signing so far in the NBA. I'm going to get it out of him one way or the other. All right, so we're going to have a lot to do before we wrap things up here. Coming up next, Keena McGee, Sadie Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. We're going to be going rapid fire coming up in the last half hour, the special Wednesday edition, right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver. I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink, And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to this Wednesday edition, a very special edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80, that's SIDKID80, SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
We have less than 20 minutes left or so in this extravaganza. We call it Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any last minute questions or comments for us during our last break of the show for today? You can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, Sports Zone Chicago, you can view and watch now available on Roku TV.
All right, Sid, let's recap. Let's recap. We talked about with our boy Eugene McIntosh just now, and let's talk about that NASCAR race in Chicago, just outside Grant Park. If you guys saw kind of like the backdrop of it, a lot of rain, of course. It was a lot of it rained kind of like we didn't have a lot of rain for like the last couple of months. So of course, it'd be today where it all kind of makes up for all the rain that we did not get. So sort of like one of those weird things. Kind of like you thought that maybe there was some standing water in some spots. They had to cancel some concerts that were it was supposed to happen, during that time because of standing water. But you give like Eugene said, give the crew credit for getting drying that track out. It was still a little bit wet on some spots. They had to put some rain tires on there. Shane Gisbergen, who is actually he's from New Zealand, so this is kind of like the race. This is kind of a street race that he did growing up. Because they do this kind of racing out there in Australia and New Zealand in that area, in that street race. So he was able to hang on in a shortened race. They only raced about 75 laps. It was supposed to have been 100, but they didn't put lights up. I don't know why, but I don't know why did they do that. But but again, a lot of the Rays out there, I know the Rays actually did pretty well too. I think it was like the highest rated NBC race in NASCAR in like 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was
in 6 years.
Yeah, so I think it had about over a 9 rating here in Chicago, which led all the cities, even though the cities down south. I think there was just a lot of curiosity because the Cubs game was over with against the Phillies. Then they had the Sox game was over with. So I think people were just a little bit curious to see how Chicago was going to do. This is actually the first. I think it's like the second or third time that a race has happened, a NASCAR race has happened in one of the big cities. Like I know they got Fontana out in California, but that's like about 2 hours away from LA. I know they've actually had some races in not in New York proper, but like around the New York City area. So. this is actually the first time where it's actually inside a metropolitan city. I mean, it's interesting because, like I said, Van Gisbergen, he became the first driver in 60 years to win. It is a Cup Series. Like I say, it's been in the second tier NASCAR race in the last few years. The last driver to do that was Johnny Rutherford, all the way back 1963 in Daytona of all places. So not from what I've heard a lot of raves about it. So not a bad showing. It looked really cool. I don't know if we're gonna get higher raves for NASCAR in Chicago for the rest of the year. I don't think that's gonna happen. But it's nice to see that actually there are actually people who are actually curious to see how NASCAR are set up and such. So it was actually good to see.
Yeah, as I mentioned with Eugene McIntosh, it was great for our city to be spotlighted in a positive light. And of course, that race ended last Sunday night after 8:30 p.m. local time. And the city looks great at night, or the night during the day, but Denver looks even better at night. I thought that NBC did a great job in covering the event. Just, I don't know if you caught the intro to the coverage, Lakina. They mentioned all the other teams that have won championships. They did not mention the White Sox, so shame on them for that. But outside of that, I thought they did a great job in covering the event. 2 thumbs up to locally here in Chicago for NBC5. Of course, Ruthie Polinsky, hope we get her on this program down the line. Her and Layla Rahimi both did a great job locally here in Chicago for NBC5 covering the event. But for the actual event itself, I actually watched the first 2.5 hours. I was watching something else, and then I turned back to watch the winner in the last 10 minutes. Of course, watched all the post-game wrap up and thereafter. But I thought that the NBC coverage was great. Started to learn a few more things about NASCAR than I ever had before. Like Eugene said, of course, him and Terrence were on the ground for It's the Bigs media, so they were right there in the event. But just watching it, I thought it was great. Starting to learn some things. But Lakina, I think you talked about it earlier in the first hour, but it was some tricky turns, especially at turn 6 and turn 11. Kyle Busch, I think, who ended up finishing third in that event, he actually had a crash early in turn 6. I thought, this does not look good, because remember, it stopped raining. The streets were drying up at the time, so you knew that the drivers were going to have trouble, at least in the beginning of the race, because remember, those tires, folks, they're not just regular tires like you and me will be driving on every day. They're specially made tires. Even those tires still, you have to have certain tractions for those drivers to operate in. But yeah, we saw a few pileups here and there. That's what happens in races sometimes. I know some fans would go there to see crashes or whatnot. Me personally, I don't like crashes, but that happens sometimes. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good coverage by NBC. It was a damn good race, and I can't wait for the next one. Hopefully, me and you will be there next year, like Gino said. I would like to at least go to one NASCAR race before I check out of here in the game of light. Hopefully, a healthy way. But I thought it was cool watching it almost from start to finish on television.
Yeah, the fact that Bush was able, I'm talking about Kyle Busch there, the kind of, you were able to crash, but then actually to finish in the top 5, ended up finishing 5th. So that just shows you, this is actually, it's kind of his kind of thing, these street races. So this is kind of that he was able to come back and, finish in the top 5. Like I said, Chase Elliott, finishing 3rd. I know, but Bubba Wallace, some people wonder where he didn't have it, the street race is not really his thing. So he'd have actually, unfortunately, ended up finishing near the back. But it was great to see. I mean, look, the Rays were actually very solid. Like I said, probably a lot that had to do with the fact that a lot of people in Chicago did watch it. So I think that's why the number kind of, was up, as it was. So I don't know, the Grand Park 220 that they called it. So, that's kind of a weird, I know it's kind of like an odd name, but, I think, look, we'll see if it does next year. Hopefully the weather will be a lot better, but yeah, it was actually a good showing by all. And I think, look, we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe the greater Los Angeles area, maybe New York, the greater New York area, maybe they'll see this and say, hey, look, we want to race in somehow, I don't know how you're going to do it in New York, but it's going to be interesting. Well, maybe we'll probably ask somebody Ryan Field about that, of course. Maybe we'll get him back on the show at some point, but yeah, I mean, it's sort of one of those things where you're kind of like, it's actually pretty cool, but I think, like I said, we'll see, but it was really great seeing everybody there, and sort of like the legends of racing out there as well. So yeah, it was actually pretty cool.
And shout out to our teammate Kyle Means at War Media. I know he was there last weekend as well, along with the Bigs. So he covered the Bubba Wallace block party. I know they were trying to get the word out to many kids of different ethnicities, people that look like you and me, to get their interest in NASCAR. You actually saw some of those kids in the audience last Sunday night, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that really was. I know that NASCAR has been very adamant about them wanting more diverse. I know Denny Hamlin has a lot of his crew members are he actually ended up finishing 11th. A lot of his crew members are very of mixed race, and I know some other guys out there. A couple other guys up at Walls. A lot of a lot. I think look, NASCAR's actually doing what they can to bring in more diversity, which is great. So hopefully, seeing that you'll see more interest in NASCAR among Black and brown folks, but it'll be interesting to see we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm kind of like intrigued to see what they do next year. But again, we'll see what happens the rest of the year in NASCAR. I know they've been kind of struggling ratings wise lately, so it is what it is. But yeah, we'll see what happens there now. Let's see where do you want to go to next. Wimbledon is starting as we speak. That's going on right now. Unfortunately, Coco Gauff lost to 2020 Aussie Open champion Sophia Kenin in the first round. So tough go at it for her. But Djokovic has been playing pretty well so far. Let's see here. What else? Stefanos Tsitsipas, he is actually in the middle of a pretty big match. They're in the fifth set against Dominic Thiem. Now that's going on right now as we speak. So if you want to watch, I think it's like ESPN right now. So if you want to do a multitask and watch us as you're watching that match, you can. Djokovic needed 2 tie breaks, but he won his match in straight sets. Swiatek on the women's side. I mean, she's looked really good so far. I know that no grass not her favorite service. She's admitted that. Madison Keys up a set and a break in her match, so we'll be great to see her back in the winner's circle too. So what's your synopsis about Wimbledon? This year's Wimbledon, the 136th annual Wimbledon Championship at the Championships.
I'll be honest with you, I haven't started watching it yet. I will start watching starting today. But I did read that headline this morning when I woke up about Coco Gauff being eliminated early. I was shocked by that. Remember, I was asking about her and Madison Keys. Remember, they were the next 2 stars to fill in the Williams sisters' shoes in the world of tennis for the American females. So it's nice to hear the good news so far about Madison Keys. Hopefully she can build back up her resume and start winning these tournaments. On the men's side, you talk about Djokic. As I asked once, and I'll ask it again, when are we going to see the American male of that? No hate to Djokic. He's doing his thing, but when are we going to see the next American male dominate the world of tennis? It's been a long time since we've seen that. The last closest thing was Andy Roddick, that was over 23 years ago. And it's been a long time since that happened. Of course, you talk about the past names of Pete Sampras, Andre Agassi, Jimmy Connors. Of course, you want to go all the way back, John McEnroe. So hopefully we'll start to see more names on the male side from the American side dominate this thing. It seems they got it down pat on the women's side, but in the male side, I want to see more. That's just me personally.
Yeah, Francis Tiafoe is the top 10. Is in the top 10. He's going to be playing a second round match tomorrow. Of course, rain's been they're getting the rain that we got over the weekend over there in Europe. So there have been a lot of matches that have to been pushed back because of all that rain. They have to actually kind of like double up and some of the scheduling and stuff. So he actually plays tomorrow. So we'll see if he can. Look, I know you want a warm up tournament out there in England, near and in South England, I believe. So we'll see if he can kind of break through and win a Grand Slam. I mean, it's going to be very tough because you've got Tsitsipas, you've got Djokovic, of course, you've got Carlos Suarez. I mean, he's the number 1 guy right now. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with that. But I know that there's another brother that's actually doing pretty well. Let's see. I'm looking at his match right now as we speak. He actually, the weird thing is he actually won Chris Eubank. I think I got his name right. Curtis Eubank. I'll look it up, but he actually won a warm up tournament last week. So, and of course, got a little bit of help from Kim Clijsters, who has a few of these Grand Slam titles in her belt. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. I know Kevin. I gotta look up the guy's name, but yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see if one of those guys kind of break through and perhaps maybe win and maybe kind of like get that league there for the U.S. on the men's side. So, I mean, it's tough. It's going to be tough because you got like so many great players from different countries. I know Daniil Medvedev. I know I saw his match. They pick up he actually another winner again under the first round because, like I said, again they've actually had to make up a lot of these matches. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. But yeah, I mean, look, the championship is one of the best out there. So I'm kind of optimistic to see how the American men are going to do. I know they've done pretty well so far. Let's see. I think Eubanks is up to yeah, I think he's up 2. Yeah, it's his first round. Like I said, like with all the weird, all the Christopher Eubanks, that's his name, that guy's name, right? Christopher Eubanks, of course, he won a warm up tournament. Yeah, out in South England in a Glasgow tournament. He's actually is up a break in the 4th set. Like I said, with all the like I said, with all the weather delays and such. So we'll see if he can hopefully he can hang on and win his first round match. But yeah, I think hopefully they can start going. I know Marco another American, he won his first round match as well. Yeah, so hopefully we'll see a big show there for the American men, especially.
Yeah, especially for Mr. Eubanks, I'll be looking out for you, young man. So I'll be keeping my eye on him.
Yeah, especially I think right now they've got ESPN Plus, so you can check that out. Now, shout out to Ricky Fowler who won the Rocket Mortgage championship. Yeah, his first tournament playing 4 years. You got to go all the way back to like 4 years ago for the 2019 Waste Management Phoenix Open. That was actually on Super Bowl Sunday, mind you. That was actually the year. That was actually the year where the Patriots beat the Rams. So that year, the tournament. That's how long it's been since he's won a tournament. Since then, he's gotten married. He's had a daughter. So yeah, you saw he got a great shot on in a playoff hole that clinched it for him. It was great to see. Unfortunately, of course, they were actually getting the rain like we got here, so they actually had to move the match up the final round up like 3 hours. So if you didn't watch it live on like I think on CBS, I think Paramount Plus had it streaming. I think ESPN Plus had it also streaming. So if you didn't watch it, I just have to watch it on the feed. So like that's how I was able to find out that was happening. So, but yeah, again, shout out to Mr. Ricky Fowler.
Yes.
All right, this is Legacy Sports on Sports Social Chicago. Keena McGee, Sydney Brown with you. Now, of course, we talked about the ESPN layoffs on Friday, Sid, and then some other days we found out that they have come down the pipe that have been let go. Nick Friedel, who of course worked here in Chicago, covered the Bulls for many years. He's covered the Nets and the Warriors since then, and of course Gene Wojnarowski, who's been in over 25 years, who's done college football, college hoops. Who's
from Chicago?
Yeah, who's a Chicago-based guy, of course. I think he worked for I forgot which. I think he worked for the Tribune. I think or was it the Sun-Times? I forgot which one, but at one point, but. Tough fit. He's gone. David Pollock, who is a veteran, they finally got him on the big kids table over at College Game Day. Of course, he did college football. A 2-time All-American over at Georgia, College Football Hall of Fame. Of course, he got the boots. Like, okay. So yeah, what do you think? I mean, it's just crazy how all this kind of transpired.
Yeah, and like you said, this is a tough part of the business that is ugly right now. And because of as we talked about before on our show last Friday, that the numbers of cable subscriptions are going down, people are cutting the cord. So those affect networks like ESPN. So not as many people subscribe, so they had to do these cutbacks, which is sad, but it's unfortunately the ugly side of the business. I was shocked by Nick Friedel because he did great work, as you mentioned, for ESPN. Of course, he did a great job covering the Bulls for a long time. Hopefully ESPN 1000 in Chicago will get him to come on their station and cover the Bulls and do some talk shows, but we'll see about that. But all the other guys you mentioned, I was surprised as well. Also, to Doug Kazarian, of course, ESPN has been on that betting bandwagon over the last 3 or 4 years. Unfortunately, he was let go. So hopefully, I think there'll be a place for him as well. Because, sports betting is a part of the culture now, is part of our daily lives. Not mine personally, but it's part of sports fans' daily lives. And so I'm sure he's going to find a spot somewhere.
Yeah, he got FanDuel and some other spots. I'm sure he'll. I was just surprised because he was kind of like the face of that for last few years when we started doing it. So that was a little bit of a shocker there. Of course, again, certain people should have gotten the boot, but they didn't. I don't like I said, I don't know what the Q rating. What were they going by? Were they going by money? Were they going by Q rating or whatever? It's sort of weird how all that kind of transpired. So yeah, so tough go for some of those folks. I'm sure a lot of those folks will probably find other jobs. I'm sure, but like you said, I mean, I know Keyshawn, of course, has been one of the favorites. Keyshawn Johnson, I should say, was one of the favorites to take over for Skip Bayless or Speak for Yourself, and a few other guys have kind of come down the pike as well. So we'll just see what happens. But yeah, a tough go at it for some of those folks at ESPN.
Yeah, we wish them the best in their future endeavors. as they continue along with this sports broadcasting journey career. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. Sid Lakina here with you as we wrap up today's show. We still have a couple of minutes left. Lakina, first of all, let me ask you this: do you have Netflix by any chance? Are you a subscriber to Netflix?
Yes.
The NFL Films and Skydance Company are creating a docuseries featuring Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, and reportedly is heading towards Netflix for around $50 million. Are you interested in watching that?
It'll be interesting to see how far they go. I know there was a picture of him that came out when he was younger, growing up in Arkansas, with the segregation, that he was standing there like as a young kid, and he said he didn't know. We'll see how deep they go. I know he and Jimmy Johnson were friends at Arkansas at one point, and it'll be interesting to see how really deep they go, like how much access they'll give them. I know they'll talk about the Cowboys and such, and of course his days at Arkansas. But yeah, I'm interested to see like how deep do they go, or is everything kind of like open? Is there some things that are off limits? That's kind of like the interesting part for me. That's what I like to see.
And also, too, will they talk about, not to get too deep into this, but will they talk about his stance with the whole Cal Kaepernick situation back in 2016? Not to kneel or to kneel. They do bring that subject up. Like I said, how far would they go with that? Will he talk about that openly? Because I know he got a lot of heat for that at that time.
Especially like I said, with that photo tours when he was younger. Of course, that I forgot which one it was, but yeah, like the Arkansas 9 or something as they were these.
Oh yeah, with the school integration, yeah.
So the area of those schools down there. So yeah, we'll see if he kind of goes in depth with that. But yeah, I mean, I might check it out. I might be intrigued. He's a very, whether you hate him or love him, he's a very intriguing individual. So he's very engaging. He's very smart. So yeah, I think people are going to be seeing like what's gonna, like I said, how deep they're going to get into it. But yeah, I'm fascinated to see how far they're going to go with this.
And back to more sports media news. Diamond Sports pays the Minnesota Twins on time, keeping their games on Bally Sports North until the conclusion of the 2023 season. As we talked about before, Lakina, many of these teams that are on Bally Sports, we're talking about the NHL, the NBA, Major League Baseball in particular. Of course, the Minnesota Twins may look for a new home next year because their contract is up with Bally Sports at the end of the year. So at least for good news for Twins fans, you can see your games on Bally Sports North for the rest of the year, and of course on the Bally Sports app. Of course, we talked about with the San Diego Padres, their games are now being produced by Major League Baseball, and for the distribution outlets that they have for their fans to watch their games, their ratings have been doing just fine. But for some of these other teams going forward with the Diamond Sports, who owns Bally Sports, they could be headed in trouble. We talked about the NBA already. Both the Phoenix Suns and the Utah Jazz will be broadcasting their games over the air. Free TV broadcasting stations and making their games available online for their fans to watch. But it looks like this trend may be coming for other teams in the near future. At least for this year, Bally Sports North will broadcast all the Minnesota Twins games.
Yeah, at least the Twins fans will be covered, so they could be in for a playoff chase. So I'm glad that those folks will be able to watch that. And look, I'm sure Jerry Rice was going to be looking at this and say, okay, with the Bulls and the Sox, and of course, I'll even have the Blackhawks too, to that extent. I'm sure they're going to keep an eye on this and see, like, will they be better off just renewing their contract with NBC Sports Chicago, or do they maybe
after next year?
Yeah, and for us, maybe they do. Of course, he majority owns Stadium now, the streaming service there. So you wonder, like, are they going to put it in this? Or are they going to try to maybe see if they can kind of like do select games on those platforms and that Stadium platform? So it'll be interesting to see what he does, because I'm sure he's going to keep an eye on see what's happening here. But it'll be just see what a lot of these teams do, because like you said, you got people cutting the cord, but of course you also got folks that actually are keeping the cord but don't want to have to pay a lot for those to watch their favorite teams, the local teams. So
exactly. And don't forget too, the Marquee Sports Network, who broadcasts the Chicago Cubs, they're going to start their direct-to-consumer service right after the All-Star break within the next couple of weeks or so. That's going to change the game for Chicago sports viewership as well. Now, their channel is still going to be available on linear cable TV, but their direct-to-consumer service is going to start here in the next week or two.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. Now, anything else before we disperse?
One last question quickly, because I know we're up against it. Did you catch any of the Nathan's hot dog eating contest yesterday? And if so, do you consider
No,
a
it's not
person
a
who
sport.
participates?
No,
Good,
it's
thank
not a
you,
sport.
thank you. Because there's been, I saw a couple of silly arguments on Twitter today talking about, oh, they're athletes. No, they're not. They just eat a bunch of junk food in a fast amount of time. Stop it.
And the weird thing is that the commentator, I forgot who was that commentator with John Anderson who did the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. He actually had the nerve to bring up Bill Russell. I'm like, really? I'm sure his ghost is probably will look at him like, really, dude? Really? You really want to compare? Okay, look, this is I think what Joey Chestnut's eighth hot dog eating contest title. Okay, that's nice. Good for him. It's not a sport, whatever, but Gluttonous is not a sport, folks. I mean, if you want to gouge like hot dogs, dip them in water or whatever, oh god, just a thought that just makes me crazy. But yeah, I can't. I'm sorry. I know they got Belgian waffles. They got like other foods that they use for eating. Yeah, competitive eating is not a sport, folks. I don't care if they say it is. Okay, whatever. But
they can remember the E on ESPN stands for entertainment in sports second, just to remind you folks out there about that. On that note, you can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
Gluttonous, folks. Glutton for punishment, literally, I guess. You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and Akila's Kirk in the IG.
Yeah, don't forget you can download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And be sure to follow War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And don't forget, you can actually catch Sports Zone Chicago on its normal time starting this Friday, and every week, every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Catch Second City Sports every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
All right, and of course, anytime, anywhere you want to catch Sports Zone Chicago on Roku TV. Of course, if you got a Roku TV app on your Roku app on your whatever device, whether it's your TV or your smartphone or iPad or whatever you got on hand, just type in Sports Zone Chicago. It's right there for you. You can catch our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas, and What's Up, Cuz. I know Sean and Maya are actually going to have their own special show coming. I think about 4 or 5 o'clock, Sid. So so don't go away there. Of course, you can catch our show and any of the shows anytime, anywhere.
Yes. So for Lakina, first of all, thank you, Eugene McIntosh from Insta Bigs, for joining us here today to talk Chicago baseball and covering the NASCAR race. You can catch the Bigs on their website, it's thebigs.us, and follow Eugene McIntosh on Twitter at Stay Humble. Once again, that's at Stay Humble on Twitter. You can find him on Facebook and Instagram as well. We'd like to thank him for joining us today.
All right, and we promise, folks, with Bears training camp starting in a couple of weeks, we're going to try to get some more, great people on to cover the Bears and the NFL. We'll talk about, previewing the season. So we haven't not forgot about football. I know it's kind of like a dead time, quote unquote, dead time of year in sports right now, but we're going to keep you guys covered, with the NFL and Bears. So we have not forgotten about that, folks. So don't hang tight. It's coming. It's coming.
Yes. All right, Lakina, take us home.
All right, for Sid, I'm Lakina. This is Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Stay cool, stay dry, stay safe, and we'll see you Friday.
Till then, go Sox. Holla!